This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Good Monday morning and welcome to Open Line, everyone. Brian Callahan with you for at least another little while, and David Williams, of course, producing the show. Numbers to call in the St. John's metro area, 709-273-5211. Should know that one off by heart by now. Elsewhere, 1-888-590-VOCM. The VOCM standing for 8626. And we can take your emails, of course, and texts. Emails at openline@vocm.com. First off, I want to thank the few emailers who, for some reason, still feel the need to remind me of who I am or who I'm not. Yes, thanks. I am aware I am not Paddy Daly, and I make no apologies for that. Paddy's his own man. I am my own man. But just in case, I double-checked my driver's license just this morning, and yes, I'm still Brian Callahan. So thanks again for that, but I'm good. Okay. To ease into it here, a bit of sports, long weekend, good weekend. Good weekend on some fronts. The sports kind of did dominate the weekend news in many ways, whether it was the Olympics, the opening ceremonies on Friday, or the Super Bowl and the Bad Bunny versus Kid Rock halftime shows, dueling halftime shows. Yes, that is what it has come to now, dueling, competing halftime shows. I tell you, you talk about your political football. It's really too bad, too, because sports is very much my escape from the news. I, for long, have had that division of categories, but now that's not even safe anymore. We can talk about any aspect of the Olympics, of course, or Super Bowl Sunday, or should I say Super Bet Sunday. Yes, I, like many, include Paddy, loathe the proliferation of sports betting and pushing it at us at every break. I suppose it's kind of inevitable. It is the money. It's what sells when all of the answers to your questions is money. Inevitable, I suppose, that they're now all in bed with the league and the networks, so we can talk about that scourge, if you like. For some people, it's a scourge. Others, moderation is good, but yeah, just too much of it for me, for my liking. And I suppose I'm a bit of a hypocrite on that front. Full disclosure, I think it was the early 2000s, a couple of Super Bowl. I won a couple of Super Bowl pools back-to-back in the early 2000s. One-offs, though. Never got hooked, thank God, but luck or whatever. But yeah, won a couple of pools. That was fun. But overall, if I had one word for the weekend events, whether it was the Super Bowl or the Olympics, that word for me would be underwhelming. That's the word. It's the only word I can come up with. I mean, the big game itself, the Super Bowl, very much a defensive clinic by the Seattle Seahawks over the New England Patriots, which never really bodes well for excitement. I mean, they got it done, but not necessarily to the excitement of the fans. They beat the Pats 29-13. The score isn't necessarily really indicative. It wasn't really even that close. A couple of late touchdowns by the Pats, but for the Seahawks get their second Super Bowl win. The Pats were going for a record 7th, and that'll have to wait. They overachieved anyway. No one really expected them to make it. The 4 wins last year, 16 this year, something else. And for all the controversy over the Bad Bunny halftime show, it was okay. Less glitz and glam than most shows, but there you go. And a shout out to whoever fixed that issue with not being able to watch the U.S. broadcast itself, if for no other reason than to see the Super Bowl commercials that companies pay gazillions to get on for 30 seconds. Some great cameos, funny ones there for sure. I'm going to get into all of them, but yeah, I had a good laugh at those. And as for the Olympics, Canada had a few looks at medals over the first few days, but we still have one. We only have one so far. That coming courtesy of speed skater Valérie Malte, the Quebec speed skater. She won a bronze. So the Canadian women's hockey team is back on the ice today against Czechia. That's around 4:30 our time here in Newfoundland time, most of Labrador. And let's see, and after opening 4-0 with a win over Switzerland, certainly hoping for some better results overall for the Canadian team now getting going this week. We're only 4 days in, so, well, 5 if you count the the actual beginning of events, which was last Wednesday. Tough go, speaking of that, for former Team Guju member Bert Gallant and his partner, wife Jocelyn Peterman, in the mixed doubles curling. After starting 3-0, lost the ice somewhere along the way, and they're out of the medals. Disappointing, to say the least, in this sport. Lost to Estonia, I think. I mean, sorry, I'm sure, they've worked hard, but I never knew they even had a team. So, yes, indeed, the world has caught up with us and our dominance in the sport of curling. No question, officially. No more. They still did the tough interviews through tears afterwards, though, Brett and his partner, Jocelyn. That was a tough interview. They shed the tears, live camera, but they answered the questions, People talk about the bad ice, but, I mean, everybody's got to deal with it. And some teams picked it up and dealt with it better than others. So there you go. One positive takeaway, Gallant will certainly have lots of experience and intel to share about the ice when his Team Jacobs team takes to the ice for the men's event in curling. So there you go. He should have some information to share there. And, of course, heartbreaking end to American downhill skier Lindsey Vonn. We know the story by now. She comes out of retirement at 41 years old, ruptures her ACL a week before the Olympics, then crashes just 10 seconds into her run, apparently a broken leg, had to be airlifted, and, a lot of tense times there for family and friends that were in the stands. Airlifted off the hill in the basket and that chopper, but apparently a broken leg, and they talk about what that might do for any further comeback. I'm not going to prejudge, but those injuries are hard to heal at that age. And there's always a few new features to the games each year, and you don't really know about them until it gets going. I have to say, the drones that follow the skiers down the hill and in other venues at 130, 40 kilometers plus an hour, it's wild. I can only watch for so long before I get dizzy, but and have to turn away. But it's pretty cool. You can take the turns with the drone. And now they have video review in figure skating as well. Maybe that'll clean up the controversies over judging that has plagued that sport over years past. Okay, so by all accounts, a wild weekend for our men and women in law enforcement, whether it's events at HMP or the lockdown downtown at the lockup or the health sciences. I mean, it just sees no end. Officials are saying officially there were no injuries as a result of disturbance at HMP Friday night. They're saying, emergency response team was called. Department of Justice says corrections officials were able to de-escalate the situation. This is on Friday night, and the facility was put in lockdown. And they say normal operations have since resumed. Department is commending staff for resolving the situation. Absolutely. But that's not necessarily what I'm hearing from pretty darn good sources, I will say that. And in my 30 years covering courts, I have a couple of people who like to just let me know when they see discrepancies between the official line and what really happens. So, I'm told an inmate was injured in the HMP incident. Allegation that he was assaulted by a guard. Not only that, but damages. And, I'm told the range, quote unquote, went up on 3A, the unit. Everything's destroyed, cameras, lights, pipes leaking, sewage everywhere. On lockdown until yesterday. There was apparently some time yesterday that the lockdown ended from Friday night. And people got 30 minutes. The inmates got 30 minutes out, but there's no sense, they say, trying to make appointments or trying to talk to a loved one because you don't get any notice. They just let you know when you have 30 minutes, so you can't really call and let someone know you have 30 minutes. It's not like a schedule, which once upon a time it was. So they're apparently locking down for months, we're told. I'm told by sources it'll be a pretty frequent occurrence. And so this is what I'm hearing from inside. The department says in a separate situation, Department of Justice says 2 people were sent to hospital from the lockup Friday night. One admitted to hospital while the other treated and released. Didn't say if they were inmates or guards in that incident. And then one glimpse at the overnight police report. I mean, police trying to arrest one guy, another one jumps in to intervene, jumps the officer, more threats. And at the merge at HSC, that continues, issues in the emergency departments. As for HMP, it really feels, and it's always felt like this, but especially with all the delays in building the new prison down there, really feels like a race against time to build that new one. But also really feels like we're losing that race every day, and only a matter of time before there's an all-out riot down there. I mean, I'm not there, so I can't even describe it what happened over the weekend is a riot, but I suppose some down there would. And, I said it. There it is. I'm trying not to incite anything, just stating the obvious. Anyway, your thoughts, that new facility, I know bricks and mortar don't solve all the problems, but at the very least, to have the proper space to be able to do the jobs and the type of services that they're supposed to be offering, not the smorgasbord of what's going on down there right now. And these are the reports we hear about, I'm told. The reality is so much more. And still with justice issues for a moment, we saw on Friday where Austin Deer, of course, the former NAPE negotiator, was sentenced to 3 years in prison in the deaths of Haley Keating and Erin Priddy, the two young girls who were killed in that car accident near Arnold's Cove just over 2 years ago. Mr. Deer was originally charged, of course, with impaired and dangerous driving. The impaired charges were dropped when they couldn't be proven, and he was sentenced to 3 years, what they say, concurrent, which means it runs at the same time. So 2 sentences of 3 years, but they will run at the same time, and that's a process in we can get into all the details of how sentences run concurrent and consecutive and the precedent for that. But it's a 3-year sentence, but, the other side of the justice system is, for the most part, sentences like that, federal sentences, you're eligible for parole after a third of it. And that's in the most, I guess, for lack of a better word, the nicest of circumstances. The judge made a point of saying here that Mr. Deer had a clean record. This was his, if you will, mistake, biggest mistake of his life, of course. Whether you want to call it that, or of course no one's calling it an accident, because it wasn't. This kind of situation where he's out in a third, whether or not you feel that's a fair thing, but again, if you're, this is the justice system where you are eligible for a third, and that's assuming you don't reoffend or you don't cause any trouble on the inside, you are pretty much a model inmate. And by in most cases where there's already so limited time at the inn, not sure exactly what facility or what institution Mr. Deer is serving his sentence, but that's an issue for the parole board. It's not up to the judge or anything. So, and a lot of times that's kept pretty much under wraps. But again, likely eligible, 3-year sentence, but likely eligible for parole and probably day parole or something along those lines, or at least eligible to apply for it after a third of that sentence. So basically a year after he's done some time. But the optics and knowing he will do time for this must provide, I hope, some, albeit very little comfort, to the families. How we doing there, Dave? Couple of calls? Yes, we do. So I'm not going to blabber on for much longer. Again, I am a host, should be just a small part of this show, except for the obvious duties that I have to perform. But the callers, you're number one, and so we're going to take them right after the break. 273-5211. Big guy's going to tell the voice anyway. Dave, let's take that break. Come back with Donna on rain checks and Keith on the wellness check protocols right after the break. And welcome back to the show. And it bears repeating, of course, and reminding, I have just a laundry list of topics that we can discuss, and everything from the Alberta separatists to the Trumpisms to the Epstein files to you name it, we can get into it. I just touch on stuff that I can before I have callers. Now I have callers. So let's go right to line number one. And Donna, you're on the air.
Morning, Brian. Thank you for taking my call.
You are very welcome.
Okay, I'll agree on what you said, that you are you, and God made you. He didn't make you anyone else.
Got that right. My parents can attest.
Right? Okay, we're getting on the subject now, rain checks. I live in the Mayorstown area, and, like when a product is, when your flyer comes out, and if a product is not there, they would issue a rain check.
Sure.
So anyway, I was back and forth 4 or 5 times, and it wasn't there. So then the rain check expired, and they would not honor it. Now, we know that the boats never got across, the trucks never got across, and that's just mother nature. But the lady at the cash is not her fault, and it wasn't the manager's fault. They said it came down from corporate. They weren't going to, after the two days, my rain check was expired. No, the product was still wasn't there. It was corned beef I was looking for. and they still wouldn't issue any more time on it. It was over. But like sometimes, like we're seniors, and we depend on sometimes to go get rain checked. We just can't afford to go to a supermarket and buy all kinds of stuff that's expensive. We're just trying to get the cheapest way possible. So I'm thinking, like, sometimes these stores are, like, really inconsiderate. They're not, like, our needs are just sometimes not met. We're just pushed in the back of the stove. But anyway, that's my little, I know you got a lot of important calls out there, and mine was only just a bit of minor one. But, no, I just, a lot of seniors, I'm sure they're doing the same thing that I'm doing. Trying to get the cheapest way possible to buy something. So that's all I got to say.
Donna, you say that to minor. It is not minor in the least. First of all, we're talking about, if you're going to talk about food prices these days, it's not a minor topic, for starters. If you're going to talk about food prices involving seniors, it just escalated to another level. Look, the company, and I'm not even sure if you mentioned it, but it doesn't really matter. Look, rain checks are rain checks. They have expiries. That's fine. But, boy, in the customer service business and in the retail business, people like yourself and others and the regular shoppers are the bread and butter. And, it's a little tone deaf. When you can't make an exception for these types of things, are they going to lose their shirt on extending a rain check when there's a legitimate reason for you?
They wouldn't do it. Nope.
Yeah, and for you to, it's completely legitimate. If things are held up, if weather is an issue, if God forbid the ferry is an issue, what a shocker.
Yeah.
But
and that's what it was led to. So that product never reached the shelves because it was never there. I checked and checked and checked. And like you said, I can't get out every day. I have to depend on somebody to take me out. As I don't drive, my husband had a stroke 5 years ago. Well, he'll never do nothing again. So, I'm depending on our people to take me around. But anyway, I guess that's life, I suppose. But
maybe we need to call it a snow check this time of year, so that they get there. Because maybe it's not raining, but maybe we could have a snow check. Maybe that'll get into the psyche a little more, and they'll say, "Oh, I see. I understand that snow is an impediment." But look, look, if I'm running that shop, and I have a senior come up to me and with an innocent request of, "Look, I'd like to still get the cheaper price. I'm not exactly rolling in the dough. This is not on me. It's not even on the shelves."
No.
They should be making an exception in just the most straightforward of cases, let alone where you actually have legitimate reasons for saying, and they should have a legitimate reason for extending it. It's just the flexibility. Yes, common courtesy. And the flexibility, and a goodwill gesture, and just to put a smile on your face. The clerk will feel better. People watching, the other people in line will see that, look, they gave the senior a break. They didn't go by the letter of the law. I'm with you 100%, Donna. This one, they missed the boat on this one. Tone deaf.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Brian. You have a wonderful day. Wonderful show.
You too. Thank you so much, Donna, for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Take care. All right, let's try Keith on line number 2. Keith, you're on the air.
Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for Monday. So far, so good.
I'm calling concerning the mental health. There was a fellow around Friday talking about it. A similar thing happened to me. Well, not similar. Pretty much the same thing happened to me.
Keith, just before you go into it, so when you say similar thing, if people weren't listening on Friday, I think there was a caller, Sean. Do you want to just you can say what you took from it, but Sean called in about not being able to get his medication and that sort of thing, having frustrations with that. I'm assuming that's the call you're talking about.
Well, yes, yes, but my situation, it wasn't about medication. It was just I went in there. I was having a bad morning, and I called my brother. And my brother called the police to do a wellness check on me. So that was okay. The police officer came to my house, and he ended up taking me to the mental institution out there. And I went in, and I was talking to a triage nurse, and she asked me what was going on. Like, she done my blood pressure or whatever and all that, and asked me, what was I having thoughts of hurting myself or hurting someone else? And I said, well, I was having thoughts of hurting someone else. Anyway, she asked me what it was. I'm not going to get into what it was, but anyways, she went on after she talked to me, and another lady came in and asked me if I was going to go through with the thoughts that I was having, and I said no. And then I spoke to the doctor, I guess. And she took my statement and all that, and she asked me if I wanted a glass of water. And I said, yep, sure, I'll have a glass of water. Anyways, she went out, and when she came back in, there was 3 police officers with her. And they took me up by the door, and they arrested me for uttering threats. And I went down, I spent most of the afternoon down in Atlantic Place, and I faced the judge, and I was released on conditions. And I went to court about it back in December 19th, and it got put over. And now I got to go to court again on the 18th for the same issue. And like in my eyes, like I went there to get help, and I ended up getting arrested. There's something wrong with the system, obviously.
Keith, when you were arrested and went before, I guess it would have been in number 7, right? Courtroom number 7 before the judge. And
yes.
And you got released. When the Crown stood up and the judge said, what's the plan here? Because that's how they do it. The judge or the Crown and the defense decide really before you come in how they're going to handle it, whether or not, you're a threat. Maybe they want to keep. Bottom line is, do we want to keep him in custody or are we ready to release him? When the Crown told the judge they were consenting, I assume they were consenting to your release.
Yes.
Yeah.
They released me under conditions I wasn't allowed certain things.
Did the Crown give any detail about what happened over at the new mental health and addiction center?
No, not that I recall.
Or did the judge?
Back in November.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the judge even asked what happened here. And what?
I don't think he did, because I wasn't there. I wasn't in the courthouse court very long. I was only there a couple of minutes and I was gone.
The only reason I ask is because it'd be interesting to know if the story differed from what they were told upon your arrest. Like what are the two stories here? Why the arrest and why the release? Because the catch and release that people have an issue with is a real thing. And you told me what happened at the mental health. There was no. Again, did you say anything? Anything at all that could have been interpreted as a threat?
I did. But, like I said, I went there to get help. I wasn't going to go through with it, obviously, because I was looking for help. Anyway, I didn't get no help. I didn't get no help at the mental institution. I went to my family doctor later, the next day, a couple of days later, and she put me on an antidepressant drug. And I've been best kind ever since. Like I haven't had no thoughts or anything like that.
Have you spent?
Because I went.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, have you spent time? Have you spent time there before?
No.
Okay. They weren't familiar with you at all, hey?
No.
Okay.
Like I just went there. Like I didn't even. It wasn't in my intention to go there. When the police officer came to my house, he took me there, and on the way out with the police officer, we were talking about what I was thinking, and all that. And I even told the police officer what I was thinking. He said, "Nah, you can't go at that stuff by," and just went on with me. And I went in there, and next thing I know, I'm being handcuffed and brought down to the Atlantic Place.
I mean, we've said forever and a day that the separation between in custody and mental health matters is we're still in the dark ages in many ways. We have a mental health court where cases are supposed to go and be tried in a separate way as they would from the norm where people assume you're not in any kind of mental distress. But again, the separation when they're putting them back, I mean, the whole idea is to try to solve this problem of people ending up at HMP who shouldn't be at HMP and should be in institutions where they can get the proper care, so that when you go in and say, I'm having thoughts, I'm here as a precaution and trying to be proactive, and then you get slapped with the cuffs on and taken down there. There's a disconnect.
Exactly.
There's no question. There's a disconnect there. If that's still happening.
Like the system is not, like there's something not right about the system for that to happen, right?
That was the whole idea, that this whole idea of a larger, a better equipped institution that can deal with the mental health issues as opposed to just the straight crimes that somewhere along the way there are experts who decide that you are or you're not in your right mind when you've committed. I don't know. It looks like a failure here to me, Keith. I mean, look, you went there for help. And instead, you got the confrontational, adversarial response with handcuffs and stuff that is only going to just, first of all, it'll deter you from ever going back there again because look what happened that time.
Exactly.
And so now you're sitting at home with your thoughts, and what do you do? And you know you're not going to call the police because...
If someone ever asked me about the mental health institution, obviously I'm not going to have anything good to say about it.
Yeah.
Like I went there to get help, and I got put in handcuffs. Right?
Would you have preferred they admitted you?
I would have preferred they'd done something for me instead of, even if they had to keep me there overnight or whatever. Yeah, that would have been a lot better than being handcuffed and brought down, put in a cell, a concrete cell for 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, I would have appreciated if they had to keep me and just treat me for it like my family doctor did. My family doctor didn't agree with what they done either. She asked me what happened and all that, and I told her, and she shook her head as if to say that's not right. And then she prescribed an antidepressant for me. And since I've been taking antidepressant, everything's perfect. So if the mental institute had to do that instead of throwing me to the walls, basically, to the police, none of this would have happened. Now I got the court system tied up. The court system is tied up now. I had to go on the 19th of December for them to put it over to the next week. And I'm hoping that it's all going to be settled next week, but that might be put over again. So the court system is still held up. For what?
Agreed. And for now, at least, if nothing else, you are in a good place as far as your medication goes. And
yes.
But, you know, I can't help but think, look, the staff have... There's no question. I don't want to lay any of this directly on staff. I wasn't there. The nuances of every situation. I've said this before. You could see a straight, very clear-cut T-bone at the intersection of Kelsey and Kenmount here, and you'll get 5 different stories about what happened. But I wasn't there, and I know the basics of what you're saying. You know, I don't know what the staff are up against, and I'm sure they're dealing with everything in a day as every day that they come in. But this seems pretty straightforward where... You know, a simple, I don't know what they were told or what the person told when they went out to get you a glass of water, but whether or not there was miscommunication or just an effort to get you out of there. Maybe they really genuinely feared for their lives. I can't speak for the situation there on the spot. And these are so nuanced, individual. Every single situation is very, very different. And the people who deal with you are very, very different. Everyone's, you know, they're not all in this one tidy box where everybody deals with the same situation the same way. You know, and it's unfortunate, especially for someone that, you know, in a situation like yourself where you really are the ultimate, you know, reach out for help. That's what everybody says to do, and then you get turned away. Keith, it sounds like a failure to me. And look, we have calls in to the Justice Minister today on a variety of topics, not the least of which is this one. So keep your ear handy. I'm hoping to hear from Justice Minister Helen Conway-Ottenheimer sometime this morning. We can go over some of these issues and see where they are on straightening up some of these issues, right, within the justice system and the mental health system and the communication or lack thereof.
Yes.
Keith, I appreciate the call. Thanks, man. Keep us updated. I'm glad to hear you're feeling better now. You know, and if those particular treatments are working for you, keep them up, buddy.
I will.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the call.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. All right, Dave, right on the break. Let's take that one and back with Carl, going to talk about the Fortune Head Ecological Reserve. Right after the break. And welcome back to the program. Just quick note, I did get a couple of notes this morning on water main break, water issues around the Conception Harbour area. We are aware, trying to get some more information. I understand now it's been 4 or 5 days. Water issues out around there. Certainly, if anyone from the community, the mayor, is listening in, might want to give us a shout and a little update. I'll throw it out there if she's not listening or if someone from the town is... wants to pass it on to someone who has a little bit of information and in the know, that'd be greatly appreciated. We can throw it on the air and give people a timeline at the very least of, first of all, what's going on and how long it will continue. Let's go to line number 3, and Carl, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Carl. I think, have we spoken before about the Fortune Bay Ecological Reserve? I think maybe.
Yes, we did speak last week.
Yeah, I imagine you're Yeah, I was going to say, I imagine you're watching with great interest what's going on around the Burjo area and the South Coast fjords, shall we say.
Well, it's another, I guess, an indicator of our government's commitment to nature and the environment and protecting the oceans and those types of things. Last week when we talked, I got some feedback from some folks who really didn't understand what my description. So if you give me a shot, I'll give you 3 sentences that'll maybe clarify this.
Sure.
So a closed landfill site was remediated in the 1990s to the standards of that day. The garbage landfill was buried underground. Later on, an ecological reserve was created, taking in 2 square kilometers of the coastline, including that buried landfill. Erosion over the decades has stripped the ground off the buried landfill, exposing the garbage to the environment. Today and every day, garbage falls down the hill into the ocean. Sometimes a handful, and sometimes a couple of truckloads, because the slope is very steep, and after weather events, big rainy events, high tides and storms, etc., the bottom of the garbage pile gets washed away at the bottom and weakens the slope, and up on the slope, it's heavy with precipitation, and it falls down in a landslide of garbage. So I hope that helps people understand exactly what's going on there.
Yeah, or not going on, as in neglect or allowing it to continue to go on there. The images that I've seen, whether it's been through Facebook or other social media, of just the scattering of all. I mean, the only other scattering I've ever seen like that on the cliffs would be, seagull crap. But this is not that. From a distance, it's just horrible. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is an ecological reserve that, for all intents and purposes, was previously a dump, and now more so.
Well, unfortunate. That's horribly unfortunate. And I'm glad that you mentioned social media, and I'm glad that you saw those images. On social media, anybody Google hashtag fix fortune head, and you'll see lots of images and lots of commentary about this snarl. But today I want to talk to you about a couple of, you got a legal background, legal reporter, terms that are used in conversation about this mess. The Environmental Protection Act is a piece of legislation that deals with these types of things, and it has the term in it, this act is crown bound. And my thought, crown bound means that the government of Newfoundland and the government of Canada are liable or fall under the people who have to follow this Environmental Protection Act. What's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, yeah, the SEPA. I think it was. I remember this from years ago. In 1999, I think the act came to existence. It's all about preventing, supposedly preventing pollution. Problem is, when they get down to the percentages or the individual, the minutia of what constitutes pollution. I mean, whether it's subjective, political, or whatever. There's a section of it, and there's no way I'm going to remember it off the top of my head, but it just deals basically with, no person shall release or permit the release of a substance in the environment, at a certain concentration or a level, a rate of release, they call it. And so, boiling down to the rates of release. And you need to have, you need to have people on the ground. I mean, how do you determine, and how do you prevent this kind of thing from happening if no one's going to have the strings of it? If no one's got any control over it, if no one's watching it, and it's continually going on. I mean, the act is there for that reason. You don't feel it's being enforced, do you?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious that is not being enforced. And by the way, like you say, I'm not an expert, but the government of Newfoundland, Department of Environment and Climate Change, engaged a contractor, a consulting engineering firm last year. They delivered a report And the report made recommendations to bring this thing up to the standards and the laws of today. Bring the thing into compliance. So if you're going to bring something into compliance, I'd say you're out of compliance. But either way, garbage going into the ocean is not great. We tell our children not to do it, and we encourage society not to do it. And the government has decided, not decided, the government is in a situation where they own a piece of property that releases garbage into the ocean. On one side, you got Department of the Environment and Climate Change in Newfoundland. On the other side, you got the Environment and Climate Change Canada. You got Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Those types of folks all got rules and regulations that everybody got to apply and got to live by, including the government. And like I say, if this is not illegal, if this is not a breach of environmental regulations, we need to do something with our environmental regulations, buddy.
Yeah, you must really feel like a voice in the wilderness. It's an out of sight, out of mind situation as well, Carl, as you know. But the whole reason you make an area a reserve, an ecological reserve, or whatever you want to call it, is for those protections, because they kick in. The Act then protects this area. This is a specific area that is meant to be looked after. And by the judging of the photos, and I mean, I'm not, I'm always wary of photos and videos, no matter what I see these days online. If I see it, I'm immediately skeptical until, and if it doesn't matter to me, I just move on. But these photos, I don't think you photoshopped any of these. This is pretty straightforward, but it feels like an out of sight, out of mind situation to me. And your voice is necessary, and anyone else, right, who has those same concerns. There's power in numbers, that's for sure.
My photos, my photography that's shared online with my name on it, is guaranteed to be true. But they very, very, very closely mimic the very pictures that are in the environmental report from the environmental consulting company. So I'm pretty confident in what I'm saying, and I've yet to find somebody who would debate that this is legal, illegal, whatever, and acceptable, I should say, in 2026.
Yeah. And again, that's why the Act is. It's why the Act is there. It's supposed to provide for the, whether it's financial support or whatever. If it's labeled an ecological reserve, there are supposed to be fixes, funding, protectors, people who are aware of it and can come to its rescue. But it seems like it's gone by the wayside. And with all the attention that this controversy on the West Coast is getting, on the Southwest Coast with the NMCA, it seems like the right time for you to bring it up, to try to bring attention to this one as well. Although, unfortunately, it seems to be much like the garbage, swept off the side of the cliff for no one to see. Nothing to see here.
No, I got you. In earlier days, a few years ago, when I was talking about this, I was lucky enough to have some folks from the provincial government come down to have a look at it. I walked out around the site with them and showed them. And we had a conversation, and my conversation is very similar to the conversation we just had.
Yeah.
I said, garbage going down into the ocean, got to be illegal. And those folks from the bureaucrats had a conversation about that, and the word used was ministerial discretion.
Yeah.
Now, ministerial discretion, as I understand it, is the minister of the Department of the Environment, in this case, saying that he's going to step over the law, around the law, whatever, and exercise ministerial discretion in this particular case. I told that public servant, you're at the very bottom of the pole, or else you wouldn't be here talking to me. And to use a term like ministerial discretion broadly is a challenge. If minister gathers information, looks at all this, and makes a decision, do you know, is there a process where a man, the minister, could look at this and decide, I, the Minister of the Environment, Climate Change, deem this to be the best kind and sign something, or how does that whole ministerial discretion thing work? Or is it a global catch-all for any time the government steps outside of the law?
Well, only because of the time on the clock, Carl, and we'll have to continue the conversation at a time. I'm past the break and I got callers waiting. But I will say this, ministerial discretion usually means, ministers are shuffled, they're minister of the crown, they take on portfolios that some have great background. A lawyer might end up being the justice minister, a doctor might end up being the health minister. But if you don't necessarily have those backgrounds, you have ADMs, assistant deputy ministers, and well-versed staff in your office that you can lean on and consult. And I look forward to Minister Chris Tibbs and any information he wants to pass along on what he feels his, shall we say, ministerial interpretation will be of the situation down there. An update on that would be easily welcome. But, Carl, I'm over the break, and I got to take it now. So I welcome the call later on in the week when we have more time, and hopefully in the interim we'll have a chat with the minister and about this particular ecological reserve, not necessarily just the one on the south coast. All right, let's take that break, Dave. We'll be right back with Alistair after the break. Welcome back to the program. Got a few calls with some curiosity and some clarification about the what we call the Unity Health Center or the Unity Health Hub, the ambulatory health hub, what you want to call it, the one down in Stavanger Drive. So, the person calls, if you actually Google that, the Unity Health Center, it comes up, but it says, and the Google, it would tell you it's permanently closed. Of course, if that was the case, we would have got called about that by now. But it is not closed. To the best of our knowledge, the hub and the Unity Health Center are both operating in the East End in their new locations. And you can go to the NL Health Services main page and facilities. But I'm going to give out a phone number here right away just for appointment booking. There are a slew of numbers on the main page, the ambulatory health hub. And let's see, a booking number would be 709-777-6440. 777-6440, 6440, or 5508. So the 777 is pretty easy. And then it's either 6440, 6440, or 5508. And that's if you're having trouble finding it online on the Google, because when you do Google that, it comes up without the phone number and says permanently closed. So it's got to be a glitch there somewhere, maybe in the algorithm or in the URL that directs people to that one. But if you do Google the Unity Health Hub, that is what comes up. But it's not permanently closed that we know of, because it just permanently opened, to the best of my knowledge. Okay, let's go right to line number one, picking up on last conversation. And Alistair Han, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I think first I just want to apologize to you for taking up a full morning of your day. I won't do that anymore.
I don't know that you took. I don't recall a full morning, but I recall a good, fulsome chat from the former from someone within the know, and that is the former mayor yourself of Burgeo. And you're following up, obviously, on a call. I do want to note that so far, Federal Fisheries Minister Joanne Thompson has weighed in on this. She was at an event on Friday, and people questioned her about the termination of the MOU reached that would conduct a feasibility study. And, basically she's talking about the theme that we had going last week, where we should be able to do both, the walking and chewing gum at the same time. What's your thoughts?
Yes, I saw where the federal minister had come out sort of in support of the NMC. Well, Brian, what I'm trying to clear up when I came on the other day was that this NMCA didn't just drop out of the sky, I think anybody who's following this now knows where it originated at. But Brian, we've got a local television station there, and every second Sunday night, the mayor or whoever comes on and gives a news broadcast just as what is happening in the town and so on and so forth. Now, I watched that last night, Brian, and I really felt sorry for the mayor and councillors. They've had quite a struggle to start off with to even get to talk to this guy, Tibbs. And and so on. But apparently they have arranged something now for the 17th of February. But the way he explained it to me, or not me, but last night, Brian, there's been a lot of controversy and suspicion about the fishing industry. Now, apparently this NMCA has got 5 signatories. It's the town of Burgeo, the federal government, the provincial government, the Halapu First Nation, and I believe the band in Bay Despair. Now, in order for anything to happen inside of that NMCA border, it's got to be a unanimous vote by all of the people. In other words, the old five of the group has got to vote in favor. So, and they said, or he said last night, that they give it to fishermen in spades, that they would never do anything that would cut down the industry, fishing and so on, in the town of Burgeo. So, you know, Brian, why the big concern? There was only being an assessment done. After the assessment, as I read it, has been done and presented, if it's taking away things that's good for Burgeo or within the area, I would assume that the town of Burgeo, I mean, they're our town council. They're not going to sit down and vote something in favor that's going to hurt the people of Burgeo. Or at least I don't think they will.
I don't think so either, Alistair. I just think it's the unknown. It remains the unknown. No one would go out of their way to do something intentional. Whether you're a politician, you don't want that on your resume and hanging over your head. Which again begs the question of why you wouldn't consult on every single level, knowing how touchy the subject, knowing how polarizing and divisive it is. And again, it's all still speculation, subjectivity, industry. Yeah, there might be windmills all over the South Coast, onshore and offshore, by this time 20 years from now. Nothing signed that I know of. There were plans, you know, we all know GH2, we're eyeing it all. That all changed. It's just the uncertainty. It's like a holding pattern where they want to keep it. You never know what might come up. We have to make sure we don't lock it down for the environmentalists so that we can never develop or never have an industry that, you know, in that area. It just seems all very careful and protective at this point, ironically, not protective the way you would want it to see. Alistair, I'm right on the news. You know, if you got a couple of more minutes, you want to hang on, you want to finish your thought, I really appreciate it.
Well, I think I better hang on.
Okay, right. I'll tell you what, we'll be right. Just hang on, we'll finish our thought and come right back after the news. Thanks for that. Let's see, I'll put Alistair on hold there, Dave, and right off to the news. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the program. Just quickly before we join former Burgeo Mayor Alistair Hand back on the line, just listening to Sarah Strickland there mentioning that sticks are coming to the Jag Sound House. I mean, it's a kind of a case this morning of the good Lord giveth and taketh away because, as you may have heard as well, the Iceberg Alley Performance Tent taking a year off, hiatus, scheduling and other issues. I mean, you look at tour dates for the best groups, and that's, of course, what they bring to the Iceberg every year. But it's a competition, to say the least, to get, and of course, location is always an issue too. It speaks to how great it's been that they have been able to get such great quality acts to come. But Iceberg going to take a year off, but that I suggest will be all compensated by the. I can guarantee you the acts that are going to continue to come into the Jag Sound House down there, which is just an incredible venue. Sound, everything you go. Well, they call it a sound house for a reason. Let's join Alistair Hand back on line one. Alistair, thanks for your patience. Thanks for hanging on.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, I'll just continue with your thought. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, what it was we were talking about, I think, was that the council there in Burgeo have committed that they're not going to approve anything that affects the fishing industry in this area. Now, one fishing industry, I don't know if you call it fishing or what you call it, that's aquaculture. they've been told that if the NMCA comes in, aquaculture is not coming in that area. That's that. But for other things, I think each thing has got to be looked at on its own merits. And in order for anything to go through, then the 5 members has all got to vote in favor. And he went on to say that, well, one thing that's talked about a lot in this area, Brian, is mining. And so the mining company did contact apparently the town of Burgeo, and they wanted to know with regard to shipping. Of course, the mining in over the road wouldn't have anything to do with them anyway. And they went off to, I don't know who they had to go off to, probably Ottawa, some places like that. And they came back definitely. There will be no problem with shipping within the NMCA. So, there's an example of what they've told the fishers. That now, if it's some fishing that don't suit, but as far as your lobster fishing and things like that, it seems to me like bottom trawling would be acceptable, but anything on the surface wouldn't, So I just, for the life of me, I can't see why we can't have the assessment done. Do the assessment, because Tony Wakeham don't know any more, or Chris Tibbs, about what this is going to be. You don't know any more about it than I do or anybody else, and we don't know what it's going to be. The assessment could very well finish up, and the FID's saying, "Well, we're pulling out. There's nothing there for us." And next thing, instead of 5 groups, you only got 1.
It just feels like, Alistair, that it was terminated because ultimately, I think everybody knows, no matter what comes out of it, it's going to be in flux. No one's willing to put a boundary around anything down there right now because they don't know the worth of it. Who might come along? Who might want to do this? And there are, as you just said, whether it's mining, whether it's, New Brunswick's just signed a deal with Massachusetts on wind energy. Look, the discussions that are going on between the 4 Atlantic provinces on new energy, it just seems like they don't want to. It's the old cut off the nose to spite your face. But I mean, to block out an area, have an MOU that finishes and says, here's the area that we propose to protect. And then it'll hit the fan because of all the areas that blocks out for potential for any kind of energy development, or for any kind of development. So it just feels very much like they want to back to square one, much like they want to do with the Churchill Falls MOU. Start with a clean slate, and where that goes, it sounds like it's just kicking it down the road as far as an actual reserve area. They want to keep it as open as possible, no matter, just depending, and because you never know who's going to come in the door with a few $1 billion wanting to develop, and we know that's what the goal of this government is, to develop, to start from scratch, undo things liberals have done, and do their own thing.
Yeah, well, that's the way I see it too, Brian, and it's much ado about nothing in my opinion. That's up to this point, and nothing has been approved, and one thing and the other, but to cancel it right down, it just don't make sense. But anyway, Brian, that's about it for me for today. But it's too bad that you wouldn't make a contact with our mayor. I mean, he's very competent and capable of expressing it, and definitely much better than I could.
Well, we've made call-outs to everyone, and the lines are open for everybody. We can't force anyone to call. But the discussion is constant, and it's not going away, and this is a Monday, so sometimes the cycle from one week doesn't carry over into the next week, the news cycle, but it is now, and you've made it that, and others have made it that, whether we're talking about the ecological reserve at Fortune or this one. And so it's on the topic, and I have other callers wanting to talk about it, but the mayor is more than welcome to give our show a call and elaborate on what they see as what's happening right now and how it's all going to play out. Alistair, I always appreciate the call. I know you'll keep it on the front burner.
No, I don't think you'll hear from me much more, Brian.
Well, I don't know. I hope so.
Okay, good enough.
I hope I do, is what I'm trying to say. I got a Monday morning tongue here, guys. I'm trying to untie it. But I appreciate the call, Alistair. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Thanks so much. All right, let's take that break. Back with Tom in response to Keith coming up. Welcome back to the show. Off to line number 5. And Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
It's first-time caller here. I've listened to the open line here now for quite some time. A lot of great topics, a lot of great discussions. It's so bad. It's really bad to hear about Patty leaving. I just wanted to add that.
Sure.
I already miss him. But anyway, I have a concern. I don't know if I can mention his name. You already had him on the air. His name was mentioned, but I just would like to know what his mind was going through, because he didn't mention it, about being in that cell for 4 to 5 hours, like he said, after having been left the hospital in handcuffs. That in itself is a mental issue. And that's what really aggravates me, that they would do that. And I don't know if anybody's talked to him while he was been in there 4 or 5 hours, or like what was his mental state like. It had to have been terrible. I had the same, not exactly the same, but the same issue when my son visited the hospital there a couple of years ago for mental health, and he was in the hospital for 8 hours. I couldn't go in with him because he was 25 years old at the time, and they had him there for 8 hours. After 8 hours, he had come out and sat in the car while I was waiting for him. He sat in the car, and I said, "How did it go?" And I had no idea what would happen or what was wrong or what happened. He looked up at me, and the tears were just rushing out of his eyes. And he said, "Dad, they didn't do nothing. All I got was past the card for the health hub for 811. I was so mad. I was so mad that instead of me going back in that hospital to find out a reason why he didn't get a diagnosis, why he wasn't looked at, why he wasn't treated with care, I called the police myself. And I said, "You guys better get here now to calm me down, because I'm ready to go in there and tip that place bottom up." Now, I don't do violence. I don't do violence, but I was so upset for my son. I wanted answers just like he did. Next thing you know, I had 5 police cars surrounding my car in the hospital parking lot. First thing they asked me, do I have any weapons in the car? No, I did not. I gave them the situation of what happened. For 8 hours, he sat in that hospital, and I don't know still to today what happened, if he was spoke to. Like, he doesn't want to talk about it anymore, but he has mental health issues himself. And it was a short time after that, we did get him some help over at Doorways, and things been looking up, but I mean, he still has his issues every now and then. But with those 5 police officers surrounding my car, I thought for sure I was getting arrested, because I didn't make no threats, but I said, "You better get here now before I go in there and tip that place bottom up." I was so angry, so aggravated for my son.
Of course you were.
Not only the fact that I couldn't go in and sit down with him because I'm his father, a caregiver all of his life, but for the fact that they passed him a card with 811 on it, so there's nothing I can do for you here. Call this number.
That first contact, Tom, I can't tell you how crucial it is for someone like yourself and your son, and you go through the trouble of actually trying to get that help, which is the hardest thing to do for anybody, to admit it and to go and seek it out, not knowing what you're going to face, not knowing if you're going to face compassion or aggression or police or what, the unknown of it. And then I completely understand your anger.
Brian, I'm so upset here right now just talking about it. And that was a couple of years ago, okay? So I could only imagine what Mr. Keith was going through that day, that morning, or whatever time it was that he got arrested, being put in that jail cell for 4 to 5 hours. after going in. I mean, you know what? You know how tough it is for people to go in? It's bad enough for people having to get in their mindset to go in and see somebody. That takes a long time in itself. So when he went in there and he got arrested and put in that jail cell for 4 to 5 hours, that requires answers. Where is the health minister on this here? I'm so mad and so upset here right now that it's like, it's frustrating.
It's beyond frustrating, Tom. I can feel it through the phone, man. I mean, look, it's your son, it's someone's daughter, and to see the vulnerability in them and to not feel that someone understands, or at least is trying to understand and care and put you in the right direction, and yet it's your son. And you're trying to do the best you can with really very little knowledge of what's happening in some cases. I mean, I know it's your son, but, we're not equipped as parents to deal with to deal with the heightened side of these things and what they're actually going through. We need professionals. And boy, when you get turned the other way and sent to a jail cell, it's, I get it. At intake, they have to understand the situation, try to get a gauge on it right away. The first face-to-face, the first contact, it can be completely volatile, or it can be completely innocent. It just the range of what they deal with on a regular basis. But if they have the proper training, and they're dealt with to at least, and they're trained to at least, deal compassionately and understandably, at least at the first in, as opposed to a business card with a phone number on it.
Absolutely, yeah. And that, out of all those police cars and the police officers that came, you know what? There were 2 police officers that did calm me down, which was awesome, which was great. There was a couple of police officers that went back into the hospital with my son because all I wanted was an answer. Why? Why wasn't he seen? Why wasn't he diagnosed? Why not? Why was he just given a card? They took him back in, and that doctor would not speak to him and would not speak to the police officers because he said, I don't have to. And when they came out, I was outraged again. And all those police officers stuck with me and my son until I really calmed down.
What did he mean he didn't have to, Tom? I don't understand.
He didn't have to give a diagnosis. The police officer went in with my son after the fact. When they surrounded my car, they went back in to see if they can get an answer as to why he wasn't seen. Why wasn't he given a diagnosis? Why was he just sent away with a card? And the doctor said, I don't have to speak about it.
Oh, don't have to speak. Well, I guess the privacy side of it. I guess he's just invoking the Privacy Act and, dealing with individual patients. I mean, I assume, I don't know, I wasn't there, so I
No, I know, and I wasn't there either, but it's a good thing I didn't go back in with him because it would have probably been a different story altogether.
Yeah. And when it goes south like that, and you're already, in the throes of just hopelessness with regard to your own daughter or son or whoever it may be, you go in trying to help. Look, especially when it's your own kids. I mean, a lot of these things happen. Sorry, go ahead.
Brian, not just my kids, but you know what? There's other families that are going through the exact same thing that are not telling their stories. Yeah. And there's other families not telling their stories. We were just one time. You know what? It's going on. I hear it so much every day in the wind, in conversation. I hear it so much every day. So, I mean, I guarantee you it's in the hundreds of thousands.
And it's still very much the stigma, right? I mean, nobody wants to admit that maybe there's a flaw in the family or a flaw in the parenting or something like that. And it's not even that. This is
it's not even
exactly. I mean, but the perception and the stigma that can come with it, and we all know that it runs all walks of life, all classes of family. It doesn't matter if you're rolling in it or you're trying to make ends meet with the next check. It doesn't have anything to do with it.
And my son is a graduate with honors. He's got his papers for computer science. The smartest guy that I know. And then have to go through this and get turned away. I mean, it makes a person wonder, what's it all worth? What is it all worth?
Yeah, and I mean, I think back right to the saddest, one of the saddest cases, the case of Ann Norris, who was found not criminally responsible in the death of a man, a 46-year-old man downtown. Goes back 10, 15 years ago now, I think, or even longer than that. 2016, I think. And, honor student, athlete. She had everything going for her as an athlete and everything else. And it just, mental health issues and not dealt with properly. And look what it led to. And I'm not saying everything leads to this, but we need the proper intake and the proper assessment and the proper heart and the proper sympathy and the proper understanding without resorting right to the jail cells, because that's what we're still doing.
Yeah, because you know what? Another thing too is we're getting pushed back out the door to become somebody else's problem. That is not cool. That is so not cool, because I'm telling you, like, something has got to give here soon.
Yeah, and it's been giving, unfortunately, the wrong way. Tom, look, I wish you nothing but the best. I'm glad. I think you said your son's doing a bit better now.
He is, yes, yeah.
The Doorways program, maybe helping.
Absolutely, yes. And I want to let everybody know. You know what? If you want to get some help, if you want to talk to somebody, go to Doorways wherever they are. Check out Doorways. They will talk to you. They will get some issues, and you know what? And lead you on the right path that you need.
That may be incredibly valuable information for, as you said, the thousands that are listening to your call and have somebody, a relative, a son, a daughter, a brother, a mother, a father, right in the exact same boat. Tom, sorry.
And I want you to, we're listening. We're listening. We're here. We're listening to them.
And look, your call is. I can't even, I don't want to say valuable, whatever. It is imperative that people hear these kinds of calls to know that they are not alone. And there are thousands. There's some kind of, I won't say comfort, but there is something to that when you know you're not in the same, you're not the only one dealing with this kind of stuff. Tom, thanks for the call. I appreciate that. As a first-time caller, there's a guaranteed level of courage it takes to call and tell your story, and I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate it, and I can guarantee you it helped someone else.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking my call.
Thanks, Tom.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. You too. Good luck. All right, Dave, right on the break. Let's take that one and right back with, let's see, Connie, right after the break. And welcome back. Let's see. Just before we go to our next caller, I wanted to circle back on, we mentioned earlier, phone numbers for the Ambulatory Health Hub and the Unity Health Center down Stavanger Way, Stavanger Driveway. Not the driveway, but driveway. I gave out a number because it was right there on the Ambulatory Health Hub. It's the appointment booking. A couple of people called to say that they tried that number and were given a different number. So hopefully we can square this up. But if you're trying to reach down there today, looking for appointment booking and that, there are numbers online, but the caller tells us that they were given this number. And it's the same 777, first three, and it's 9111. The last four numbers, 777-9111, is a better number, we're told, to call. To actually reach someone, make an appointment, and get some direction. So for information services, or for information purposes, I should say, if you're looking for some information, whether it is the hours and the appointments and when they're open and when they're closing, and if they got any room, that is it, 709-777-9111. Let's go right to line number 3, and Connie Pike, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How's it going this morning?
It's a Monday, so it's very much a wait and see. I feel like the government.
Is true. Yes, so much happens in a day, it seems.
Oh my God! And then after a weekend,
Brian,
trying to catch up on everything, eh?
Exactly. Yeah, Brian. I think it's been a minute. I think we talked once before when you were filling in for Patty. You and Linda got big shoes to fill there, but you're doing a real good job, so glad to hear all that. Going to miss Patty, though, I have to say. Brian, I wanted to give you the numbers, the court numbers on the child abuse cases listed in all 10 courtrooms for January of this year, and not looking any better than they did last year. The numbers are 332 cases, and there were 66 people charged with those 332 offenses. And I'll just remind callers and yourself that less than 10% of cases are reported to authorities, and only about 2% go to court. So I'm giving you the court numbers. but it's really a misrepresentation of what's actually happening in our province. There are thousands of cases if you do the math. So it keeps on being disturbing because, I haven't seen it get any better, and we're heading up to 3 years now that Miles for Smiles, headed up by Bev Moore-Davis, that we've been doing this particular project, calling in with the court numbers, and as mentioned, we're not seeing a decrease, and that's a disturbing feature for sure.
You can certainly be rest assured it's not getting any better, Connie. I'm down in it all day, and, I do a regular search every day of the docket, of course, because of the number of cases that I'm constantly following. And look, if we do one story on somebody, then we have to follow through with it, because people will follow that story. If we decide, because there's so much down there, sadly and troublingly, and look, I've done it for, 30 years plus, and I've never seen the like of it on the docket. There was a time when they jumped out at you, and I mean that, I don't mean to be this in any flippant way, but there was a time when, you see 4 or 5 sexual assault charges under someone's name, and that's it. You circled it, you copied down the date, and you were there for that appearance. Now it's just, you cannot keep up with it. And we have to,
it's so commonplace.
Yeah, we have to pick our spots in our battles. And it doesn't help when there's 4 pages related just to Tony Humby, or another 6 pages related just to Marcus Hicks, who, by the way, of course, I just wanted to remind people of the sentencing hearing. While I'm here doing this show, obviously I can't be in court at the same time. Marcus Hicks, of course, the former volleyball coach out in Paradise. Crown is seeking 18 years to 20 for him in prison, that sentencing hearing, and that's not done with yet. And so those are on the docket, but on top of those, there are new ones every single day, names I've never seen before, and you have to try to find time to follow them because you don't know where they're going.
That's right, and I can confirm that the numbers for February aren't looking very good either. They're higher than January's at this point, and even though Marcus Hicks and Tony Humby are both listed on the dockets, I don't even count those anymore because they were already counted when they were charged.
Yeah, so that doesn't...
Those don't get counted, and the numbers are still high.
Yeah, you're not bumping numbers there artificially. Someone's saying, oh, yeah, she's counting all those. I doubt anyone's actually saying that to the radio. But,
Yeah, I wanted to chat about the latest Statistics Canada numbers on child abuse and online crimes, sexual exploitation and such, if I could, for a couple of minutes. But before I move on to that, I'd really like to give some thoughts on your last caller. I believe his name was Tom, and he talked about his son being in the system and the mental health challenges and so on. Mm-hmm. And you listed off a number of things. You can't get proper this, you can't get proper that. The one thing you didn't mention was proper support. And here is an opportunity for caregivers. Here is an opportunity for medical providers to take advantage of support. And in this case, his dad would have been the support. And they denied him access. And I can assure you, I'm familiar with many, many cases like this. I certainly understood his frustration. You could hear it loud and clear during the call. And I just don't understand when someone presents with a mental health challenge, a mental health issue, why they can't have their caregiver or an advocate with them. Let's face it, Brian, the mere nature of the issue, the mental health challenge, that alone challenges the person who's needing the help. And you can't have someone there with you because of privacy concerns. You think that this dad didn't see all of these issues at home, wasn't familiar, couldn't add value to a conversation with a medical provider? This is just bananas. And when you talked about it, not being a flaw in the family, you're so right. It is and continues to be a flaw in the system when someone presents with a mental health challenge and can hardly speak for themselves. Someone who is in that person's life, who's close to them, who's given them care, who's given them love, who's given them support, should be able to be with that person at all times and have input.
Absolutely. That's your comfort. That's the only look, the recognizability, the comfort, the person who knows you, the person who can, you can turn to as soon as the despair, like you mentioned, frustrating for Tom's call. It was beyond that for me. I mean, it was palpable. It was just despair. Thank goodness his son has found a place through Doorways, and I've gotten a couple of texts here talking about how valuable Doorways is, by the way. Just for that, a shout out there. But yeah, as you said, Connie, you could hear it. And again, as I mentioned and you just repeated, this isn't a flaw with the family. These supports should be there. And if I didn't mention support, I can't imagine a most total flaw on my part, because trying to list off all the things that had failed that young man while the father was helpless to do anything about it.
I understand why you missed a couple of words there, Brian, because, I'm the armchair person. I listened to your call so that I could reflect on the words, but I could hear your frustration with it too. And, I don't get that part of the system where you can't be with a person that you love and care about and support anyway. So I'll just leave it there. But that dad, and I can't speak highly enough of Doorways. They do phenomenal work, and anyone looking for assistance should and could reach out there first as a first stop. And I just hope that government will listen to people's pleas and have the resources needed at Doorways to accommodate people and help people and support people along with their caregivers. So anyway, it's kind of a good segue in many respects into some of the things I wanted to talk about. And
Connie, is there any way, only because I don't want to give you short shrift, we're right on the break, is there any way I can ask you to hold for just a couple of minutes?
Sure.
So to give you the full time you need, because it's too important a topic.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to put you on hold. Yeah, no, you're more than welcome. Thanks for holding on. I'll just put you on hold. We'll take the break and continue right after. Welcome back to the program. Let's rejoin Connie Pike with Miles for Smiles on line number 3. Hi, Connie. Thanks for waiting.
No problem at all.
Sure.
So I'll just move on to the latest numbers from Stats Canada, and I'll use the caveat that their numbers generally lag behind 2 to 3 years, which is a little disappointing. I know they have to wait for years to go by and make comparisons and things like that, but I'd certainly like to see things a little more up to date. In any event, up to 60% of Canadians have reported some form of maltreatment before the age of 15, including emotional abuse. So, again, I'll use the example of your previous caller there, and anybody who's in a family who has a trusted person who seeks help because of that emotional abuse or is experiencing some kind of mental health episode because of that abuse, they need a support person with them. So when you're talking 60% of Canadians, this is why the numbers continue to remain the same, in my opinion, because this is where we fall down. We're not looking at the numbers saying, what can we do? It's like, we can't do anything. It's like people throw their hands up in defeat, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to refer you. I don't know how to help you. Instead of, how can we do something about this? And over half of that number, Brian, over half of that 60%, in fact, it's almost 35% of Canadians have experienced physical or sexual abuse before the age of 15. So even if you took out of the equation the emotional abuse, you're talking 35% Canadians who have been physically or sexually abused before the age of 15. So over 1/3 of the population, which again is not acceptable. And I keep asking, what are we actually doing? What are the tangible solutions? And I see funding being cut for various programs that can help instead of resources being added. And I know the governments are strapped, but this is not a crime against property. These are crimes against people, and we need to address it as such. The other part I wanted to mention was the significant increase, and this is one that really, really worries me, and I'll talk about it maybe on my next call next month, but the significant increases in sexual exploitation of children. They've reached record highs in 2024 and 2025. That one is up to date.
Yeah, and
I can... Sorry?
I was just going to say, and this was a problem before the advent of social media, Connie. So it's exponential times exponential.
Yes, and of course, because people were isolated during the pandemic, we saw the numbers go up again, and now we're seeing them go up again because it seems like people have been given permission, to be quite honest. And that number really worries me. Seeing that go up, it's going to continue to go up. In terms of online crimes and exploitation, and again, remember that very few crimes are reported. So cybertip.ca, which is where parents can get a lot of information about this subject matter. They received for the fiscal year 2024-2025, 28,453 reports. So, closer to 29,000 reports. So if you're thinking about that and doing the math again, you can easily multiply that by 10. There's been a 150% increase in sextortion since June of 2022, and that, in fact, is an old number. That's over a year and a half old now, that number. So I suspect that increase has been higher, too, in the past year and a half.
It's on fire. It's ridiculous. Look, the numbers nationally, internationally, I saw stats in the United States. The sextortion is just... in every way, shape, or form, if they can contact or if your child is on a platform, they found a way to access it.
Exactly. And that's another point in our own country here. Youth are represented there. They make up 82% of all victims of online sexual offenses, 12 to 17 years of age. These are our teenagers who are having their teen years robbed from them. They are 82% of all victims of online sexual offenses. Girls are disproportionately targeted, of course. They are 77% of all victims, so it's still very high. There was a stat that talked about extreme online violence, which includes threats and blackmail and such. There were 5 cases of extreme online violence, all targeted at young girls. There were 5 cases in 2022. In 2025, there were 70 cases. So, we're talking numbers that are really going off the charts here. And I'm wondering when that will slow down, when it will be addressed properly, when we'll see a reduction in numbers, because each month as I'm counting the court cases and I'm seeing all these cyber crimes that are affecting children, I keep waiting each month for the numbers to go down, and they're not.
Yeah, and Connie, we know that these are just what's reported, what are actually followed through.
Exactly.
Where somebody actually reports it, charges are filed, and it actually gets on the docket. We know. I don't even want to think about the percentages of the incidents that are already happening. Connie, I got to get to my next caller just before the break. One quick wrap-up.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brian, for the time. I appreciate it. I keep throwing out some of the same information every 3-4 months because not everyone hears it each time, and sometimes people need reminders. And I would just ask if anyone's listening in government, can we please start taking these issues way more seriously?
Absolutely. Keeping it on the burner. Look, as I said, it's only a tip of the iceberg. It needs to be. I don't think anyone's saying, oh, no, she's at it again. This is important stuff. You need to keep it up. But the work that yourself, Bev Moore-Davis, yeoman's work to say the least. Connie, I wonder in my own quiet moments how you manage to stay with this, the devotion you've given to this cause, because it can weigh. I don't need to tell you, as the former law enforcement, it can weigh. But you've continued on even after the force and that sort of thing. How are you doing?
Gee, Brian, thanks for mentioning that. I do practice a lot of positive self-talk. I've been doing this work since 1975. I've always told my children, how can I give it up when it, is so prevalent? I can't. And I've also told them that it's like beating my head against a brick wall. It's going to feel so good when I can stop doing that, but right now I don't see that in my future. So someone has to point out these obvious numbers and issues, and, I'm just one voice of many on the front line who are doing that. And I think collectively we're not being listened to, but I just live in hope. I guess I keep saying I live in a place called hope.
What do you do for fun?
I try to walk every day. I'm on my treadmill.
Me too.
And as soon as the weather clears, I'll be out on the trails. And I like my walking. I like my exercise. And I like watching movies that are comedic, so that helps.
Me too. That is it. Look, walking and funny movies every now and then just to absolutely give your brain. And you've been carrying this torch for so long. And the work that, when you think about what's happening to many of our children, as you just said, the impressionable years where the slightest scar, the slightest wrong turn can turn it the wrong way. And we just have to be, as parents and caregivers, right on top of it. Connie, look, your work with Miles and Smiles, to you and Bev Moore-Davis, keep up the important work, please.
Thank you, Brian. I'm not the one who needs help. The children do.
No kidding. And we all need to do our part there. There's absolutely eyes, ears open, and in touch with them, communication all the time. Connie Pike, thanks so much again.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate your time.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, Dave, we're just coming up to the news. Just want to remind people one more time, I got a texter asking me for that ambulatory hub number one more time, 709-777-9111. 777-9111. If you have any dealings to have with the hub or the Health Unity Center down there today, that's a good start. If you're looking for a phone number, and not always easy to find them. All right, let's off to the news with Sarah Strickland, and back with Mary and hospital wait times right after the news.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And welcome back to Open Line. Without further ado, let's go right to Mary on line 4. Mary, you're on the air.
Yes, hi, Brian.
Good morning.
My name is Mary. How are you this morning?
I am fine. Thank you for asking. How are you? And thanks for your patience on the line, by the way.
Oh, that's no problem. As a first-time caller, I normally don't call in over those things, but it's getting at the point that I believe that it should be brought to more people, should be bringing it to your attention, or whoever the host is. I went into the hospital there February the 4th. I was in really bad pain, and I had to wait 13 hours overall to be seen to.
Which hospital was this, Mary?
In Corner Brook Hospital.
At Corner Brook. That's the new one.
Yes.
13 hours. Take me through it. So why did you have to go there?
Well, I had to go there because the day before, I went to walk-in and to a doctor at walk-in, and I had to wait 3 hours to be seen to there, half an hour before I got registered. When I did, he went and called that evening, and he said, I believe he said that you should go into the hospital, if not tonight, he said tomorrow morning, because he said a few things wouldn't showed up. And anyway, I went in and I went and got it checked out. I was half an hour before I got seen to, which was a fault off my own, because there was a lady there and she had asthma attack. And I said, my love, I said, you go on. You take number 57. I said, and I'll do 58. She said, are you sure? I said, yes. Even when I got seen to about half an hour later, when I went in to the waiting room, do you know that lady was still there? About 2 hours after I was still waiting to be seen to.
And she was still just sitting there, and she was the one with the asthma attack?
Yep.
I mean, it's great that you, between the two of you, managed to triage and decide who should go first, but really that should be for the staff, of course. How busy are we talking? I mean, look, you know, we hear the stories of this all the time. I mean, we know they take the most urgent, or they try to triage toward the most urgent case, obviously. That would be in thinking, although we have, as you know, just recently, a woman at Carbonear Hospital whose partner died waiting in a chair outside.
Yes, I was listening to that onto your show. My gosh.
After a 10-hour wait, yeah. And she's calling for an inquiry. I'm going to guess that you might be on side with that.
Now, Brian, you know, I find that a lot of this is going on, but it's not brought to anybody's attention. Can you imagine the ones that's out there? Like, there was a man in there, and he was waiting, and anyway, myself as a healthcare worker, I looked over at him and I said, sir, are you okay? And he said, no, not really. And he had his hand to his chest. Now, I know the symptoms for blood pressure, the vital signs a lot, right? And I said, well, may I go and get you a bottle of water? And I gave him a bottle of water, and I had cold clots in my purse, hand wipes, and I went and gave him a few of them. And he was still 1 hour later before he got in. And he said, I did go in, but he said, they only went and took my vital signs again and sent me back out. And when I was leaving that night, he thanked me. He said, my dear, he said, I thank you so much, he said, for helping me. He said, I hope you got your problems seen too. I said, yes. I said, but you were the most important one. I said, I put myself aside for you, because when I went down to get him his water and that, I wasn't feeling the greatest myself, right? But that's just the way I am. So can you imagine just an ongoing thing into the hospital? And there's a lot of people don't even bother to call or put in any complaints or anything about it. And Brian, there's more and more lives being put online daily, you know? And there's people going in there and not getting seen to.
I do know, and this woman I was just mentioning, who lost her partner last March because after waiting and passing away in a hospital chair out waiting, she had said, your point is being made. She said there that, you know, she had just heard a St. John's doctor in the media saying it was only a matter of time before someone died waiting for care in an emergency department. She heard that and went, well, this just happened to me. So she spoke up. But sometimes that's the only time people will spoke up. She probably wouldn't if she hadn't heard that particular doctor just happen to mention in passing that, well, it's only a matter of time before someone dies. Well, guess what? My partner died waiting in a hospital hallway in a chair.
It's crazy, isn't it, Brian? And I mean, Brian, my husband was sick with the flu the week, and he was sick enough to be into the hospital himself. But like he said, what am I going to do? He said, go in, he said, and wait hours to be seen to. And he said, look what's happening to people out there. He said, they're leaving the hospital. He said, and they're not even being seen to. I mean, Brian, this is a beautiful hospital, yes, no doubt about it. But lives are put on hold because of the beauty that they wanted to show.
Yeah, place was a long time coming, but you know, and the idea here, the whole idea is to divert people away from emergency rooms, you know, and to try to assess in a better way with these other hubs and ambulatory, and try to direct people with non-urgent. But it's easy to tell someone you're non-urgent when you're not non-urgent. You know, if it's a person who's struggling with the actual issue, you try to tell them it's not serious enough for emerge. Well, you know how that's going to be received.
Yes, exactly. And my doctor, he's the one that went and gave me the orders. Mary, I want you to go into the outpatients, he said, and get checked out. He said, because there was a couple of things that showed up, and he said, I'd like for you to discuss it with them when they get in there. And he did phone and tell them that I was on the way in, but I went in at 2. Because of this lady, I wouldn't let her go ahead of me. I got seen to 3, and 3 in the morning is when they went and seen me about my matter. So when they took me into this room waiting for the doctor to come in, I was still waiting another hour. The young student guy, male, went and came in, and he told me, I'm sorry, he said, but he said, emergency, went and came. And I said, listen, my love, I said, this is an emergency that I have. I said, I'm here in pain. I said, and I've been waiting like 13 hours, 12 hours, excuse me, at the time, because I had on the other hour, it'd be 13, right? Then I was still waiting for her to come and see me. When she came and seen me, I didn't find her very nice. She was nasty. If looks could kill, I would have been dead on the chair. And anyway, she said, I'll be back shortly. She said, I'm going to send you for more tests. After me having tests the day before, then I had another 45 minutes to wait to get them results back. When I got the results back, I was waiting almost another half an hour for her to give me a sick note for work the next day and a prescription that wasn't needed because I had it home. I told her.
Mary, outside of the wait time and everything you had to go through, did you get your issue dealt with?
I certainly did, because I've seen my own doctor. I was able to be fortunate enough to get in to see him, and it was dealt with, and I'm still dealing with it. But I tell you, I'm not in no hurry to go back into that hospital.
Well, they might say that, the idea is to direct people away from the hospitals and emergency rooms. So I don't mean to say it coldly, but that is the idea here, trying to get people who may not be as urgent because, I can appreciate a young doctor or resident is on and all of a sudden an emergency comes in, and you can only appreciate and imagine with the staffing issues we have, how that throws everything off kilter. And the next thing, the waits are longer. But, some might say, look, it was a long wait. It wasn't good, but I can only imagine having a family doctor must have helped.
Yeah, paid off at the end. Yeah, so now the 24th of February, I will be seeing my family doctor again, and then he'll be on his holiday. So I guess he's overworked too. He needs a holiday too.
I can guarantee that.
Thank you for taking your time to speak with me, and I thank you for Dee. And I just thought I'd bring it to your attention.
Mary, it's imperative. Yep, it's imperative. Look, first-time caller, don't let it be your last. These are the calls we need. So the people are listening. Thank you for the call.
All right, Brian.
Okay, take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Yep.
All right, Dave, off to the break. Then we're back. We got Ray talking government cost saving. We have Bruce talking about response to Mary, and Jamie Baker coming up with the FFAW right after the break. Welcome back to the program for this Monday, February the 9th. Let's go right to line number 2. And Jamie Baker, the Secretary-Treasurer of the FFAW, you are on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Callahan. It's been a while.
It has. We're right back in the Telegram newsroom, aren't we, right now?
Yeah, man, and like what a team we had at those. I think that's probably some of my most fun times in working life, the times we had in those few years there, man. What a crew.
When someone ever says, may you live in interesting times, I say, you don't know the half of it from the Telegram newsroom back in the day. Oh, my God. Anyway, it's great to hear you, man.
And you too, man. And listen, you're doing a great job. I know those are big shoes to fill there even in the interim, so great job on you for doing it. You've always been a very capable fellow, a journalist and a broadcaster, so good for you.
I appreciate that. No shoes here to fill. Patty took all his shoes. We're making sure we stay in our own shoe size. So, Jamie, you've heard it, the discussion, the NMCA for the South Coast. I know the FFAW welcomed the decision by the province to eliminate the MOU, the process, to cancel it. But, I've heard from various corners, no matter the issue here, there are people, including the MP, Joanne Thompson, who have problems with just the interruption of it, and not just at least seeing it through, whether or not it's for the optics or just creating and gathering all that information that the MOU would have done. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I do want to walk through some of that for you this morning and kind of help people understand how we landed where we landed on this. We didn't go into this with any preconceived notions. About a year and a half ago, our president directed myself as the 3PS rep at the time, and Katie Power, who handles all things that are not fish even, to go and get the answers from Parks Canada on all these fisheries and all these issues that harvesters are raising, because they had concerns about what they were seeing and wanted to know the real deal. So we went right to Parks Canada and we said, look, we have a list of questions. We'd like you to walk through all of it with us and tell us exactly where this all stands. And, we got those responses. To their credit. They did do that, and we brought the information to the harvesters, and that's kind of how where we landed. So what we did was, the unknowns and uncertainties you mentioned early, those are very, very real to people in that area, especially our people. So first of all, I want to say this assertion that fisheries would not be affected in any way is absolutely 100% false. We were told unequivocally at least one fishery would not be allowed in the NMCA, and that's scallops. That's fine and dandy. For other fisheries like lobster, we were told, we don't really see any issue here. However, and there's always a big caveat on every fisheries question we asked, and the caveat was that all the details around those fisheries would be worked out at later dates. Well, I'm sorry, that's just not good enough for people who are investing heavily in enterprises and trying to make a living there to say, well, maybe later on we'll have a look at it. And I'll tell you, in Atlantic Canada, there's been other areas that have been down these roads before. One in particular, where harvesters were told the same thing. Not to worry. When we get to negotiations, we'll work all that out and you'll be the best kind. And then at the end of the day, they lost significant portions of their fishing grounds. So a little wariness on behalf of the harvesters there in terms of how all that came to be. Also concerns, Brian, there wasn't an iota of economic work done. They call it, the word feasibility to me usually means you're going to look at the cost-benefit analysis. None of that. We didn't see any of that there. And, another thing, too, we were consistently told, and I'm sure you've heard it, that DFO would continue to manage fisheries within an NMCA. The part they're not telling you is that, yes, they would, but they would have to adhere to any rules that were implemented under any provisions of an NMCA. And one thing you mentioned a minute ago as well that really struck a chord with all of us is this future fisheries idea. I don't know if it's news to anybody, but apparently fish swim, right? So, we're seeing species of fish moving around in different areas where they hadn't been before. We've suddenly got lobsters showing up in places they've never been before, different types of ground fish and pelagics. It's really important to have clear and set feasibility if you're going to be able to tackle these future fisheries. So, we didn't go at it from an adversarial perspective. We went at it from the perspective of our membership. They want stability. They want to know what's going on. And we were just never included. We literally had to elbow our way into the room to even be considered. And then even when we did, all these people I'm hearing now on the radio and online saying all these things, not one of them have reached out to us to talk about it. Not one. So I don't know how you get a process like this that everybody's so upset about when the people who are affected the most are the ones that are ignored the most. So that's why we landed where we did. And for me, Brian, I'll be honest. Look, I've been to Burgeo many times, and you've been around the province. Sometimes you go to a town, and it gets in your blood a bit, right? Some towns just do that to you. Burgeo is one of those towns for me. I love the place. I love the people. We are absolutely prepared to go to the table with the province, with the towns, with any interested sectors and local stakeholders to talk about how we can build that area up, how we can increase the economic development, how we can grow the businesses there, how we can address all these things with everybody who has a clear, defined stake sitting at the table. And I just wish, I guess my last thought on it, Brian, I really wish, with everything you're hearing, I wish I could show you all the calls, emails, and texts we've had from harvesters on the South Coast saying to us, thank God somebody listened. Thank God the government actually had the cojones to step up and do this, knowing they were probably going to get some beatings from some of these groups. But at the end of the day, we need to reset at the very least, and we need to put fisheries first because that's what sustains those communities. That's where we stand.
And nothing would have been, to my understanding, or were you told that anything would be entrenched? This is still an MOU. What I hear is the cancel culture, the elimination culture, that's it, we're just going to scrap it and then we'll see where everybody stands, and maybe this time we can have good consultation, because consultation has always been an issue, as you just pointed out, as far as the people who never came to the FFAW on this. I just wonder what finality you fear might be in place by just completing this process as it was started. You know, there's always an issue with just scrapping it and starting. There were reasons, there were, raison d'etre, if you will, for, going down this road in the first place. And, I have no doubt mistakes were made because this is an MOU process, and we all know how loose it can be until it gets to any kind of finality. I think that's just it. It's just the idea that, where was the harm? What fears would there have been to just completing the process?
Well, I don't know about my raison d'être because mon français est horrible.
Je parle français un petit peu, monsieur.
At the end of the day, look, all we say is that, look, this process really, I don't know if it started on the rails, but it certainly went way off the rails. And the things and the influences and the messaging we saw happening there, like you'd have people say one thing in a meeting and another thing publicly, like it got really silly. So there was just no way anybody in my world was going to trust that process once those things started happening. So a hard reset at the very least before any discussions could happen. And again, we need to have these people at the table. Because if I'm a harvester and I'm down there, that's where I make my living, on that water, and to have that patently taken away from me without really having me sitting on the front lines, like that just should never have been a thing. And the really sad thing that I see about all this is that if you go into Burgeo, and a lot of the people complaining about this don't live anywhere near Burgeo, as you might know, and I don't either, but I do spend a fair bit of time there whenever I can. It really has divided the town. Like the people, you've got people looking at each other differently now because of all this. And I just don't think this process, I think the water is poisoned on it, but I don't think that's the end of it. I met directly with the town myself with a few harvesters not that long ago in December, and I told them, we're prepared to come to the table with anyone else who wants to and find a future for this place because you deserve it. And I think there's lots of things there we can do. I don't think it has to be all about an NMCA. I think it can be driven a lot more sensibly with a clear group of people at the table who have a stake in it. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, it's not, for us, I mean, it's turned into a bit of a bun fight, as we used to say back in our halcyon days, but I don't think it has to be. I think we can do something like together to try and find a way to the future, and that's where we need to be anyway in any towns. I mean, look at Bonavista. Years ago, similar process happened, Brian, and they got close to doing something like this as well, and at the end of the day, it didn't happen. Bonavista did what I'm suggesting now. They got together with people. They started organizing what they were doing there. The fish plant was there. You know, they built on that. Their tourism, they built on that with the Matthew and all that good stuff. And now they're starting to see some mining interest, in their areas. I mean, if you've been to Bonavista lately, the place is bustling pretty good sometimes, right? So that's the kind of future I think we can see for a place like Burgeo. It's not just Burgeo, it's the whole South Coast. And I think we can do that collectively as a group in a way that we can all have, here's the key word, trust in the processes.
Yeah, it's a pretty high-stakes bun fight, to say the least.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Jamie, listen, I always got time for you, man. Thanks so much. You need, the FFAW is a massive cog in this, whatever you want to call it, the spokes of the tire or whatever you want to call it. It's a massive aspect to it. So your perspective needs to be here, and I can understand what you're saying to get back to the drawing board. Just keep us in the loop on whatever you hear and to ensure, of course, that you are having to say that you so rightly believe you deserve.
Yeah, man, appreciate that a lot. And listen, one of these days when you and I are retired, and we're closer to that than we might like to think, unfortunately, we'll have to get together and write that book about those few years at the Telegram. I think that'd be a bestseller.
Oh, my God. Yeah, we'll have to exclude. There'll have to be a lot of anonymity throughout that one.
Touche, buddy, touche.
And talk about consultation on an MOU. There'll have to be even larger consultation on that one, Jamie.
Jeff, cheers, man.
A few people we'll have to talk to. Thanks again for the call. Take care.
All the best.
All right. Dave, take the last break of the morning for this Monday, and we'll be right back.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Into the final half hour for this Monday on Open Line. Let's go right to line number 1. And Ray, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I guess we all know that our province is in a mess financially. I think the figures show that we got a deficit this year of about $964 million. And what I've done over the last 3 or 4 months since we've had our new government is that to date I've written 4 letters to the Premier, and in each letter I've addressed certain issues and suggestions as to how they could help cut costs. And I'll bring forward 3 or 4 of those measures now. And in the future, I will call back to your program, and I will outline some other things that I see, and not just me. Sometimes, the best place to get some good information is go up and sit down at Tim Hortons or Robbins with a few of your buddies and have a coffee, and people see what's going on. So anyway, I'm going to start with the province's libraries. Now, you may recall back in 2016, Dwight Ball's government closed 54 of 94 libraries, but because there was some protest from people in different communities, they rescinded their decision. Now, there are many libraries across this island that they're basically, in my opinion, they're just social gatherings and a place for people to go quilting. And we can't afford that. I'm not suggesting that there be no libraries at all, not at all. But we do have many libraries that don't need to be open. So that's one thing. Number 2, we have too many schools for the number of students that we have. Let me give you an example, and this is in the Premier's writing. I retired from education about 20 years ago. At that time, the board was looking at reducing the number of schools in Stephenville. Now, at that time, they had the primary school, they had the elementary school, they had the middle school, and they had the high school. And that's 20 years ago. You know what? There are still 4 schools in Stephenville. They have about 1,000 students, and if anybody can convince me that they need 4 schools, then good riddance. But in Stephenville, the most that they would need would be 2 schools, a K-6 and 7-12. Now, I'm using Stephenville as an example, but there are many situations like that throughout our province, and the reason is that right now, we don't have a school board who could do the dirty work for government. So now it's the government that has to make the decision, but they need to have the political will to do that. Now, it wouldn't be a very popular thing for Tony Wakeham to walk into his district and say, look, we need to close some schools. But it's the responsible thing to do. And like I always say, there's an old adage that says, what's always right is not always popular, and what's always popular is not always right. So the issue of declining enrollments and too many schools, it has to be addressed, and that will save the province millions. Number 3, I think every owner of property in this province should have to pay property taxes. I think there's almost as many communities that don't pay taxes as there is paying taxes. Now, I live here in Port of Ass, so I pay my taxes. I get my roads cleared in the wintertime and repaired and what have you. And not only that, our community is more or less the service center for the Southwest Coast. So people who are coming in from other communities that are not paying property taxes, I mean, they come in, all right, my taxes got to help keep the hospital, keep the roads in good repair going to the hospital or going to the mall or going to other places. So I think it was Premier Wells towards the end of his term that he was suggesting that the province be divided up into counties. And I think one of the counties over here, let's say from South Branch to Rose Blanche. But everybody would be paying taxes, and he was using the model, I think in Nova Scotia, they have 16 counties. But everybody pays property taxes. Now, I understand I'll use the Codroy Valley because that's near to me. They have their own water and sewer. Okay, here in town, when I pay my taxes, the town provides my water and sewer. I am not suggesting that their taxation be at the same level as mine. But if the government is clearing their roads and streets, then they should be paying to help foot that cost. I think the government needs to reduce the civil service. Now, I recall back when Danny Williams took over, one of the first things that he did, Loyola Sullivan was his finance minister, and he instructed him to go to every department, and every department had to reduce the civil service by 20%. And that they did, and they saved the province millions. Now, Clyde Wills, you may recall, when he came in...
Got hammered for it. The purge. And got hammered for the big purge that he made.
Yes. Okay. So we had a collective agreement already signed, but when he came in, he said, look, we can't honor your agreement. We don't have the money. And he didn't. Now, that wasn't very popular with teachers. But let me tell you one thing about Clyde Wills. In my adult life, and I'm 73 years old, that Clyde Wills is probably the number one premier in my mind, because when he left office, the province's books were balanced. And that's the first time in Confederation. So Tony Wakeham and his government, they've got to make some difficult decisions. I just used the analogy this morning. I was talking to a couple of friends of mine, when you and I pass on, should our children have to pay off our debt? Obviously not. Well, that's what's happening now. And if somebody doesn't start making some tough decisions, well then maybe we will go bankrupt, because if it hadn't been for the federal government, one of Dwight Ball's governments was going to go bankrupt. So, we're in a difficult decision, and I don't blame it on any one government, because every government that's been in there, they've spent money like drunken sailors, and right now this is the mess that we're in. I am pleased to see that the government has kind of put pressure on the university that they've got to start making some cost-cutting measures. And I'll just touch on one other point. You take in Grand Falls, central Newfoundland, I mean, they had the Premier's office. Well, that was costing $2.2 million. And Tony Wakeham has promised that that's going to close. And so it should. They closed the trade center down in Boston. You might say, well, it's only $1 million. Well, $1 million, if I had that in my bank account, I'd be a happy man. So what I'm saying is that difficult times require difficult decisions. And I know that, politicians, one of their aims when they get elected is to get elected again. But we elect those people to run our province, to do the things that's fiscally responsible, and somebody has got to try and get this province on the right footing, because if not, like I said to somebody the other day, well, if they don't close schools, for example, maybe we won't have a school for the youngsters to go to. Like the situation, and I'm sure you recognize that, and anybody that lives in this province that's in the know, that we are in a mess. And I'll just touch on one other thing before I hang up.
Sure, I got about a minute. Got about a minute left there, Ray.
Okay, you look at the ferry services around this province. Now, I'm not saying eliminate the service, not at all, but those ferries make hundreds, if not thousands, of trips throughout the course of the year, and there are no passengers. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be streamlined and made a little more fiscally responsible. But anyway, that's my, and I will call you back in the future because I have other issues, and like I said, I've written 4 letters to the Premier. I've addressed different issues, and I will call you back over a period of time, and I will discuss them with you.
I do hope you do, Ray. I mean, you've put a lot of thought into all of this, and I appreciate it. And we'll have time maybe next time to have a little chat about some of it. The only thing a couple of quick takeaways. Yes, Clyde Wells made some unpopular decisions, but he was bent on balancing the books, as you said. He made the unpopular decisions knowing they were. And I would argue without the theme, despite being a politician back to Joey's days, of, the first job of a politician is to get elected and the second one is to get reelected. And as far as public libraries go, I don't know if you've used them. Public libraries have evolved far beyond the books on the shelf, whether it's the various programs they have, whether it's the video technology. They even rent out musical instruments to kids and to people. So, look, that one I would look at a better review. I think they reversed.
Yes, and I'm not suggesting that all the libraries, but there are some libraries that need to be closed.
Sure.
That need to be closed. And I'm not a one. I mean, I spent my career in education, and there was probably no greater promoter of literacy than myself.
Sure.
But you have to look at what you have and what you can afford. And if we had the money of Saudi Arabia, we could have a library in every community.
I don't want their money, especially, I just don't want their money. Ray, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Next time, bring on the other topics you got. I look forward to it.
I certainly will.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the call. Take care. All right, Dave, quick break and back with Bruce. Welcome back to the show. Last caller of the day on line 3. Bruce, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Brian. How are you today?
Great. For a Monday. Thank you. And yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. You're doing a good job there holding down the fort.
That's a good way of putting it. I'm hoping we're holding her down.
Yeah, just going back to the story there, the lady in Corner Brook wait at the hospital there.
Yeah.
I got a similar story last week or the week before. I'm from Bonavista Vista proper, and my mother lives down there with her husband. She's 79, he's 72. Anyway, he took a stroke there about a week or so ago, and he rushed off to the hospital there in an ambulance. The doctor assessed him in Bonavista Vista and told the ambulance drivers immediately, take this gentleman to Clarenville, he needs immediate attention. And so they did that. They took him to Clarenville, and when he gets to Clarenville, the nurse, the paramedics pass him over to the staff in Clarenville. The first thing the nurse says is, well, why didn't you call the guy's call? This is urgent. The doctor told you to bring him up right away. And anyway, the guy said the radios didn't work in the ambulance. This is the start of it. Anyway, to make a long story short, the gentleman still had to wait another well into the evening, hours and hours after, before being scanned or checked. And all the staff had left at 5 o'clock or something to that effect. They were told 5 o'clock or whatever it was. So he came around that time, a little bit after. In any event, he had to wait well into the evening before he was scanned, before they can get a doctor or somebody back, I suppose, to read this stuff and conduct a scan. 3, 4 hours, well into the evening before he was scanned, and whoever scanned him told him, or the doctor told him, well, too much time has lapsed. They couldn't tell him one way or the other. As a result, this man is blind in one eye and partially blind in the other at 72 because of this, because of the delay. If the scan was done, the angiography or the CT scans, MRI, whatever they do there, it may have very well have saved his vision if they could have done any procedure. So it just ends up to the people of Bonavista. This is what's going on down there. It's really only a Band-Aid stop there on Hospital Road. But even in Clarenville, your chances are better with the lottery. So that's my story after hearing that young woman there in Corner Brook. You ask a politician about the healthcare system here, and they tell you there's nothing wrong with it. So, can you imagine being blind at 72, Brian, as a result of a stroke? I just, well, somebody give me a gun. I'd want to shoot myself.
Oh, God, don't do that. Look, and we'll always remember, and I know you're being a little bit flip, but I mean, we'll always remember there are people, you always know there are people in harder situations than yourself. But easy to say that you could live with it, and most people, you're right, probably would not be able to live with it. The quality of life, you have sight all your life, and all of a sudden it's not there anymore. Did somebody actually in a healthcare position, a professional, tell the gentleman that because of the wait and because of the communication issues, whether it was with the radios in the ambulance or whatever, and they didn't know you were coming, and the delay as a result of that, did anyone actually say in as many words that contributed or actually directly caused the sight loss?
Well, I think that's what was relayed to me, but I think that the delay certainly contributed to it in the event any procedure. In the case of strokes, my knowledge, and that's limited, I'm not a medical doctor, but time is of the essence, and if there's any procedure that can be done, again, time is of the essence. So if it takes them forever to do the scans and then diagnosis, in this case, they portrayed to me, they told me that yes, they were told too much time has lapsed for them to properly diagnose, and therefore all of the even the diagnosis went on until he went back, I think this week. I think he's gone back there yesterday or Sunday or Saturday. He's gone back to the hospital, and they've since done the check and said, yes, you had a full-on stroke, and and now they're managing the symptoms. So the outcome, So this is the problem with the healthcare here, is if everything is delayed and everything is, and now you got a bigger problem. Now you got a man at 72, right? Now is your problem, the healthcare.
And now a larger, arguably, and I don't mean to, certainly this is no reflection on the individual, but now an even bigger burden on the healthcare system. I get it.
Exactly my point.
And time is of the essence when it comes to a stroke. There's no question about that. Unfortunately, we went to that with my father. We saw how quickly things can change from a situation that you would never see him in before. Debilitating symptoms that it just... there's a commercial that was making the rounds for a while about heart and stroke, and a very powerful one at that, where the real shock of the family, once you realize what's happening, it just gives you goosebumps right through you. You're in your worst moment, and so is that person. So time is of the essence, absolutely, and things like communication, I can't even tell you. In our business, in anyone's business, it's just become such a massive issue. And this on a different level when it comes to radios. Was that problem ever solved? Did you ever get to the bottom of, was that the issue? They just didn't call ahead and couldn't because there were problems with the radios in the ambulance?
Well, that's what they were told. But, I mean, who doesn't have a cell phone these days, right?
Well, that was my next question, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're tripping over themselves. I'm not sure, but you got a 72-year-old man who was in the prime of his life was active and outdoors man and extremely physical and skilled with his hands. Even his job all through his life was maintenance and those types of things. So this is a gentleman who's active and now with no sight. Yeah. It must be gut-wrenching.
Well, Bruce, and we do know that our healthcare system is not in a normal state right now. It's not in a normal state in most jurisdictions. There are stopgaps everywhere. There are staffing issues everywhere. There's delays everywhere, and we know there are waits everywhere. We just need to hear more about them so people can understand that it is actually happening. Politicians are happy to not hear about these, even though they know what's going on, because they are working behind the scenes. And one can only wonder where the health accord, 10-year health accord stands right now, with Dr. Parfrey gone from the NL8 services, and it's still in motion with a lot of changes. The core care system is supposed to come up in April. We need an update on where all the training is with that, because that was taking staff out of the system as well, because they all have to get trained up on a new system. Anyway, look, we need these calls, Bruce. Yep.
The Dr. Parfrey thing, that was political patronage at its finest.
And I'm going to continue to, I've known Dr. Parfrey a long time, whether it was through sport or through the medical field and politics. But I call again, I don't want to bug him too much, because right after it's always awkward to come get on the airwaves. But knowing Dr. Parfrey, I'll bet you he's got some things to say about the current state of the healthcare system and where it's going without him at the helm. Bruce, thanks for the call. I really appreciate it. Right up to the time here.
Take care.
Thank you. All right, great show today. Lots of emails here that I'm going to get to after the show. I'll have a good look and I'll do some homework, and we'll put them right on the top burner for tomorrow's show, I promise. Thanks again, Dave, very much for your yeoman's work behind the glass. Sarah Strickland's up next with the news. Drive safely, arrive alive, everybody. VOCM cares.